Hey, this is Ramon, Channel Alpha 4. And today we're going to be talking about metaphor and allegory. The popular definition for allegory, I'm going to be using Bing. An allegory, a story, poem, or picture that can be interpreted to reveal a hidden meaning, typically a moral or political meaning. All right, so that is allegory. What's a metaphor? Okay, a metaphor, a figure of speech in which a word or phrase is applied to an object or action in which it is not literally applicable. Since I don't like the way I say applicable, let me get you a different definition, which is a metaphor is a figure of speech that refers to something being the same as another thing for rhetoric effect. All right, so those are your definitions. We are going to talk about a question I have for you. Do you believe Julius Caesar existed? Do you believe ancient Rome existed? Do you believe that Rome was founded by two brothers? Do you believe that Alexander the Great existed? Do you believe that Thucydides was witness to a war in ancient Greece? Specifically, a war between Athens and Sparta. Why do you believe these things, if you do? Where do you get this proof? You get it from books. Okay, so you got little pamphlets on here. Then go somewhere with it. All right. How do you know Julius Caesar existed? Because he shows up in history books, right? And you see him in your texts. Here's a problem. The earliest point in time that you have anything written by Julius Caesar claiming to be about Julius Caesar is the 9th century by a text that's in Amsterdam. That's 9th century AD, or CE for those who have a problem with people saying AD. 9th century. Okay. How do you know that Alexander the Great existed? Because Julius Caesar refers to Alexander the Great, so therefore they're in continuity, they reference each other. Here's a problem. Alexander the Great, you're not going to find him until you get to the 12th century, which is later, by the way, than the Julius Caesar stuff, which is weird because Julius Caesar referencing stuff that happened before, which means this book is older than that book, even though this book exists later. How'd that happen? Okay. All right, so maybe individuals in history are not easy to identify and prove. Fine. Okay, let's talk about histories themselves. And for this, I'm going to use what I consider the first history, Herodotus, and I'm going to use one of my favorite histories, Livy, and specifically the War with Hannibal, or the Punic War, or whatever your publisher that you prefer happens to title it. Okay, so Herodotus, the first history. Well, got some bad news for you. 10th century is the first time you're going to find this text. That's just around the corner. That's not BC, that's 10th century AD. But good news for you, there's a fragment from the 3rd century. What's a fragment? Fragment's probably about the size of this little pamphlet, this little post-it note. And it has text and it's all scribbled on and can't really see it. What about Livy? We can find our oldest fragment from 1329. I got the exact year, 1329. But you're not going to find the war with Hannibal until 1470. That's just before Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Do you believe that one? We got a problem. Do we believe history actually happened? Well, we got a bigger problem than that, because what about these books? See, there is stuff in Herodotus that Thucydides contradicts. And if you take the entire canon of Greek texts, ancient Greek texts specifically, they contradict each other. Cassius Dio, Thucydides, Herodotus, all say contradictory things. Who do you believe? Okay, well, let's take a later date. Let's take Roman Empire fairly positive the Roman Empire is real. Livy, a historian. He has to be telling the truth, right? Except no, this is mostly myth, especially in the earlier stuff, like the early history of Rome. But this is real. And you can know it's real because he went and did research, and he read other sources, and he interviewed people who were in battles. Right? Well, let's see. Livy was alive from 59 BC to 1780. Oops. Hannibal's battles were around 200 BC. They weren't around at the same time. But he had sources that he used. And we believe Hannibal is real. There's not one textbook that says Hannibal didn't exist. There's definitely not a textbook that says Livy didn't exist. Except we don't have any proof Livy's real. I mean, we have his books, but all of his books, in fact, all of these books, you're going to find usually only medieval manuscripts. That means handwritten manuscripts for all of these things. Those are going to be your first complete editions. Probably not even in the original language. Though some in the Latin, of course, but some might be in Dutch, some might be in Italian, some might be in Greek, even though the original is Latin. So how do we know they existed? Well, because they made references from other texts, except all those other texts are also from about the same time period. So other ancient writers refer to other ancient writers, and that's how we can figure out who was talking about what. But the entire corpus only starts at around the 12th century. Yeah, that's a problem, ain't it? So do you believe these things are real or not? And if you do, well, then you have a problem if you're a skeptic. Because if you believe these things and you're a skeptic, there's another book with much better proofs, with much older texts, that I can pretty much guarantee, if you're a skeptic, you don't believe. Now, I'm not going to name that book. Let's title this video, Allegory and Metaphor. That's the subject of this video. So, do you believe Hannibal existed? Do you believe Livy wrote Hannibal? Do you believe Julius Caesar existed? Do you believe Julius Caesar thought that his hero was Alexander the Great? Now I know what you're saying. What about Suetonius? You're right. Suetonius wrote lives about the Caesars. What about Plutarch? Plutarch wrote lives about many of these people, except most of his stuff is also from the 12th and 13th century. Though we know he existed beforehand, how? Answer with that one word, and you understand what I'm talking about. So, I'm not trying to be a prick. I guarantee you, I'm not. I just wanted to make a point. I love reading ancient texts. I love the fact that there are stone tablets with writing that can be translated. I love that stuff. But this stuff, the stuff that we believe without question, doesn't have a stone tablet that dates back to when it was written. What it has is manuscripts that date back to the medieval times. Peace, like and subscribe. Hope you enjoyed.